Yeah, we're live.
Boom. Adam, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man, of course. You're the man.
Yeah, you're the founder of System 8, which I think you call the complete athlete. Will you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, our thing is building complete athletes from young ages 10, 11, 12, teaching them the form before they get into puberty where we can really load them up safely because they've already learned the form. And then developing them through high school, through college, and then eventually into the pro. That's our goal for all our young kids that we train. We also specialize in training pro athletes from the NFL, NBA, MLB. We've had a lot of success. What makes us different is kind of like, building a complete athlete. So there's a lot of, in the training world, there's a lot of people who know how to do strength, how to get strong, how to build muscle, maybe even how to do speed, how to do some agility and footwork, but not too many people can put it all together. And so that's what we focus on, is building the complete athlete. But it takes more than just my knowledge and my coach's knowledge about science. It takes our team that we've developed for 15 years now, and it includes doctors, physical therapies, chiropractors, massage therapists at the highest level, using all the toys of recovery, such as the Morozko Forge ice bath and saunas, as well as like regenerative medicine with stem cells and the doctor reviews for a long time for that, PRP, ozone therapies, red lights, the whole thing. So our thing was putting it all together, understanding the how everything helps an athlete essentially become more athletic, because at the end of the day they're human. And so if you make the human healthier, then the athlete's going to thrive and not have so many things working against them. So that's our thing, is putting everything together, building a complete athlete, and that's what we're trying to do.
Now, some of your pro guys you were telling me have reached out to you because you are at the leading edge of using cold plunge therapy. You go way cold down to freezing. I visited you at your studio. I've been in your Morozko. And they're asking you, these pro guys, hey, I saw this thing on Instagram. I saw this article about this study that says ice bath doesn't work for building muscle. What are you telling them?
I tell them what you would always taught me. But no, I've been following you for a while, and the thing I like about you is, as far as ice bath goes and therapy goes and cold therapy goes, you're going to cite the science, you're going to go peer reviewed, and you're going to just put the research out there. You have no other agenda than to just spit facts. And it's the same thing about me in my training world. I have no other agenda than to make athletes better. So when I have athletes that trust me throughout their whole careers, Pro Bowl careers, from nothing to a lot, they trust me because I have no other intention other than helping you become the best you can, playing my role. I have no other ulterior motives, and I just go based off the science and the facts. So, along with that is why me and you got along so well, because when you speak in reality and you speak facts, there is no arguing, there's no confusion, there's no gray area, there's no opinions. It just is what it is. And it makes life a lot easier. And in my opinion, you get better results when you can communicate that to the athletes who are getting all these different bombarded with all these different scams and frauds, really. And so they'll always send me the memes that they see, or some crazy Instagram page, whether it's a bot or a troll or not, or really live people that are just speaking it, who just don't know. They're just ignorant to the matter, and they just kind of get with the trends. Anyways, they'll send me this stuff because they know I'm going to give it to them straight. And so that's what I did. They sent me some memes. Recently was about ice baths, and how they were arguing with me in the weight room. We always have discussions. It's fun because they see me cold plunging and then working out after, and I'd always tell them to do it. Some of them will do it, some of them won't. You know, and they say, they don't like it, whatever. It's not good for me. I said, well, physiologically speaking and factually speaking, it is. I understand you don't like it and it's hard to do, but don't confuse the two things. So they'll send me the meme of someone talking, or a meme say, okay, now you do ice baths and it's going to lower your muscle mass or decrease your hypertrophy gains, or it's going to hinder the hypertrophy programming that you're trying to implement at the time. And I respond to them right away and say, well, I hate stuff like this because that person, I could just tell they don't understand really what they're talking about. Because if they did, they would have mentioned the flip side to it and the timing about it and the mechanism of to prove how they're actually what they're saying. What's the mechanism for what you're saying? They don't really understand it. They haven't looked at the peer reviewed research. They just saw it somewhere else and they're regurgitating it, which I think is even worse than the person who started it.
Agreed.
And so anyway, so yes, I tell them, yes, if you do a hypertrophy workout and you go right into the ice bath, it will minimize your gains. It's not going to decrease them all the way. Yes, it will minimize it because of the science that I'm sure you're going to allude to. But if you do it on the flip side and you do it before, it has the opposite effect because of the rewarming mechanism that your body has to go through because you just freezed it. And so I understand the science and understand what you tell me, so I'm not going to try to explain it, but that's what I told them, and that's why I sent it to you, and you already had saw it, obviously. But now I want you to kind of like explain why the muscle mass may or may not decrease after the ice bath or after a workout. If you ice bath after a workout, how long until are the effects of ice bath right away a certain percentage? Or and then what if you do it 7 hours later, 6 hours later? Is it the same effect? I don't think so. And then what is the mechanism for why doing it before you work out? And how does that actually increase testosterone hormones that will help with hypertrophy?
There are three things. And so I might ramble for a little bit, but I'm going to try and get through these three things. The first thing is my frustration. There are people who have much larger followings than me, and some of them are experts in physiology or extreme exercise, and they don't really know anything about ice baths. Others are experts in cold plunge therapy, but they don't really know anything about exercise. And they fall into this, it's like a trap that the only way to use ice baths is for recovery after a strenuous workout. Now, most of the information that you're hearing is pretty good. If you use the ice bath immediately after a workout or after a competition, it will reduce inflammation. It will reduce delayed onset muscle soreness, so DOMS. It will allow you to get back to the freedom of movement without pain so that you can compete again. And there's a role for that. Susanna Solberg is pretty good on this. Huberman is pretty good on this. They say if you're in a multi-day competition, it could be a golf tournament or a tennis tournament, or a lot of guys in youth baseball are going to play triple headers. And then they got to come back and play another triple header if they keep winning. Getting in the ice bath after a day like that will allow you to come back and compete again without the soreness that otherwise might impinge your movement. That's terrific. But if you're not in season, or if you're not in the middle of a tournament, the suggestion that Huberman, which is reliable, and he's gleaned from the literature, is wait at least 4 hours. And this, if you do the ice bath immediately after your workout, you will reduce the stress. You will help your body recover. But because you're reducing the stress, you reduce the body's stress response. Exercise is a hormetic stressor. You do too much and you're going to injure yourself. You do too much, you can even damage your metabolism. But if you're going for the right workout, you said, this is the right workout for me, I'm going to train to failure, or I'm going for cardio, or whatever it is. And then you do the ice bath in a way that reduces the stress of the workout, you reduce some of the hormetic benefit of the workout. You're reducing the body's response. So if you're not in season or you're not in the middle of a competition, wait 4 hours before you do the ice bath. What everyone is forgetting is the second thing. When they give that advice, is that pre-cooling is super powerful. Pre-cooling is the proper way to use the ice bath. And not everybody can do this. And so sometimes you're in a situation, football, for example, where you got so many pads, you got so much equipment, you can't hop right in the ice bath during the halftime. Although I know hockey players who do it. If pre-cooling, if you're able to pre-cool, what that will do is boost your performance, heat extraction, and there's a lot of literature on this. Extracting heat from the body during strenuous exercise will boost mitochondrial performance. That's increased endurance, increased peak muscle output. The work on this isn't mine, it's Craig Heller's. He's at Stanford University. He did a podcast with Huberman on this, in which he went into a description of several studies that he and his colleagues there have done that show not a little bit, massive gains. It's the way to get a new personal best. And it's cardio and resistance training are both improved by pre-cooling. Here's the third thing, or maybe it's 2.5, because I got a lot to say. The pre-cooling also speeds your recovery. And this is something that Heller didn't go into because he didn't really measure recovery. When you pre-cool, you get many of the same benefits as post-cooling, even though your body is working harder. Even if your workout takes you to a higher heart rate, which is indicative of how hard your cardiovascular system is being stressed, you will come back to your normal resting heart rate faster. Pre-cooling your workout will also speed your recovery. And again, because of the schedule or the equipment, the availability, not everybody can pre-cool. If you can per-cool, if you can cool between sets, for example, or you can cool during a competition, this might be a frozen towel. There was one study where the Koreans froze a cabbage leaf and put it under their baseball cap, and their players got a performance boost from the heat extraction through their head during their exercise. If you can cool before or during, you're going to get a performance boost, and what most people are neglecting to mention, you get a faster recovery. And here's the last point I want to make, and it's about cortisol. There's a lot going around about cortisol shock, burn out your adrenals, get stuck in a fight or flight sympathetic, and it is all nonsense. I'm not saying, of course, the ice bath activates your sympathetic nervous system. But when you do whole body, not a cold shower, not partial, when you do whole body cold water immersion, you also stimulate the parasympathetic. This is the rest and digest division of the autonomic nervous system. So you get a temporary sympathetic activation, and then you get a long-lasting parasympathetic activation. People who are worried about their cortisol response are thinking too hard about it. But I can't blame them. If your cortisol is too low, you will get a cortisol spike from the ice bath. But out of the Lithuanian Sports University, I have a friend, Marius Brazaitis. He's got the best data on this. Cortisol is ordinarily high in the morning, and he brought people into his lab for a morning ice plunge. He noticed that the people who were already high did not go any higher. The people who were low did get a boost. If you do it long term, what you discover is that the body acclimates to the cold in a way that mutes the cortisol response when you become acclimated. That is, you still get the gasp reflex, you still get a sympathetic nervous system activation, but it is not accompanied by that cortisol spike. And again, we're starting to accumulate some really good data on this. A lot of the people who are on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube or whatever complaining about that shock response are out of date because they're not reading Marius's data. The best example of this is Mitch Wisnowski. He's the punter for the 49ers. He had a cortisol bubble in the back of his eye, and his doctor told him he had to reduce his stress. He said the cortisol was due to too much stress. Mitch said, I'm a punter. I'm going to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to reduce my stress. How am I supposed to reduce my stress, doc? Instead of quitting football, he did breath work and cold plunge. He went back to his doctor. Cortisol bubble was gone. Because when he acclimated his body to the stress of the cold, he normalized his cortisol response. It helped him manage the stress of performance or the stress of being a new dad or the stress of whatever it is that comes in your life. This sympathetic, parasympathetic sequencing builds your heart rate variability. And heart rate variability is the best physiological marker of psychological stress. So those are the three things. I haven't written them down, but the three things that have been frustrating me lately about how popular it is to bash ice baths. And I understand what you're saying. You get inside a guy's head, The stakes are very high for some of your guys, especially when they're eligible to go free agent. And some of them are signing $15 million, $20 million a year contracts. At that stage of their career, risk management is super important. And when they hear a rumor coming off of Instagram, maybe it's from somebody with a PhD, maybe it's from somebody with a medical degree, and it's ill informed, but it's got a lot of clicks. Of course, they want to call you up and they want to say, Adam, is this true? Should I be worried about this? A mistake can be very costly at that stage of their career. So I understand why they have to ask.
Yeah, no, that was great. I think you nailed it. And just to clarify or just to expand on that is like it was, there is doctors out there saying it, and you are not quote a doctor, you are a doctor, whether you're a doctor of physical therapy or an MD or whatever it is. Okay, you went through the schooling, you did the doctor stuff. And for me, a lot of times I could just do like a sidebar note is that like sometimes with physical therapy, doctors and those kind of guys overstep their not their scope because their scope they're within their scope because they get the certification, they get the schooling, but they're just it's a different path in the training world. I feel like the best teacher is a mentor, someone who has experience in training and implementing scientific strategies. So, yes, some schooling, but then at the end of the day, it's only about 25 or 30% of the stuff that you're going to need to learn that's going to make you a great trainer. And so, yes, you went to school for physical therapy, but you didn't go to school for the biomechanics and you didn't go to school for the physiologically stuff. Although you did for your bachelor's, I know how the stepping stone works because I went through it, but it's you don't make money off of training athletes. You make money on repairing them. You make a living fixing injuries and stuff like that. You do not make a living preventing them, or else that's how you'd be making all your money. And then therefore, why would you want to prevent all the injuries? Because you're getting paid a lot of money to rehab them. So it's almost like you'd shoot yourself in the foot if you healed everyone from being injury free. So, anyways, those are kind of people that I see tapping in and weighing in on this ice bath thing, and saying that, now they're talking about hypertrophy and all this kind of stuff. Like, okay, you know about hypertrophy, you know what phase, you know what to call the phase because you looked up West Side Barbell, you learned from Louis Simmons, you know the hypertrophy phase coming off a season is important. And yes, building muscle off a season is important, but to blame it on an ice bath that's going to take away from hypertrophy, it's just you don't understand what you're talking about. Nor do you understand where to specifically use that tool of an ice bath. It is just another tool. And so I think they just need more experience with that. And then you got it right is yet they're gonna and yes, we're saying that you guys are on Instagram and you're on Twitter doing this, and me and you are not against Instagram and against Twitter,
On
but
Instagram and Twitter. Why should
correct.
anybody take my word for it? Just
Yeah.
because I'm out there on social media with my 9,000 followers or
Right,
some crap.
right.
I mean, I can understand why they want to believe somebody with 1 million followers. If they're more popular, they must be right. But
Correct.
that's not the way it works. This is something that I want to ask you about because right now in pro sports, there's a big tension between the medical community and the performance community. And that's kind of a word that I'm using as an envelope to contain personal trainers, to contain that mentor that you're talking about, to contain the people who have sport specific knowledge, but do not have the medical credential. A lot of teams are hiring these human performance coaches, bringing in biohacking technologies, whether that's red light or PEMF or ice plunge. And the medical people feel the competition. The difference is that the performance people are working in a highly experimental way. They're like, let's try this, see what works for you. Every athlete is different. If this doesn't work, we'll throw it away. We're going to bring another experiment to see what does. The medical people all go through the same curriculum and they say, well, yes, we can tune a little bit depending upon someone's individual injury or depending upon the range of motion in their body, but we cannot depart from what we have been taught 10, 20 years ago in medical school or PT school or chiropractic school. Are you seeing this tension where your athletes are getting two different, I guess I could call it perspectives, but it could be conflicting advice from the medical community and the performance community.
Yeah, let me just also say that when we were talking about the Instagram and us being on Instagram and social media, is that we're not against you doing that or whatever it is. What we're trying to do with this kind of call is speak the facts loud enough and often enough so that they drown out the scammers and the frauds that are running rampant in my industry and in your industry.
Correct.
We're not against the platform. We're just trying to speak and use the platform we do have with just facts to counteract that. So I'm
You know
doing
what
that
would
in
be
my
great?
industry, and we're doing that in your industry now too.
Yep. If somebody with 1 million followers started stealing my content, that would be fantastic. If they started saying the thing, if they read my book and looked at the citations that I got in there, and then they just started saying what I've already written, they don't even have to credit me. At least people would be getting better knowledge because it's not about the follower count for me. I'm trying to help the people who want to make themselves healthy again, whether that's an elite athlete or whether that's somebody with insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes who's working through obesity or feeling the cognitive decline. There are a gajillion people out there who need the good message. So I would I would welcome remix this, recut it, clip it up, send it out there, imitate it, and let's get the truth to disseminate.
Correct. And then so back to your question about the tension between, I guess it would be the private sector, myself getting, I only get paid to train athletes, and then maybe like the professional um, sports teams and sports medical side of it. Uh, I don't know if there's tension, but what I have seen over the years is that it's delayed. And like you say, someone like me who makes a living, like an athlete has to pay me money, or I don't make any money. So if I want to get paid money, especially from a top athlete, I really got to know my stuff and I really have to deliver. So it's up to me to come up, to always be innovate, to always go with the newest science, to always learn from people like you who are innovating and bringing in outside knowledge that typically isn't in the performance world, like the pre-cooling technique. Everyone knows ice baths after decrease inflammation. That's been known for a while. But for you to take it further and say, no, it's not just that. It's this whole roll scroll of things that just keeps growing as we learn more. So you can apply it. And so for me, I say, okay, I take that and say, you know what? This is another differentiator for me. I'm up and up. And so I take that, I buy your ice bath, I put it in my facility. I take Rob Gronkowski, I take the big time athletes, Tristan, these guys, and I say, listen, we're doing this now. We're pre cooling. Here's the research, and we're gonna jack your testosterone and things up. We're gonna get a better muscle recovery. We're gonna get something I don't think you mentioned, but I know you told me about it. Is total body muscle activation. I mean, you just dump your body in 32-degree water, every muscle is going to be activated. And so and I notice it when you get out. I mean, I did ice bath at 32 degrees, about 12 minutes a week for over a year straight. And I always get out, and the workouts are harder because you're utilizing every muscle. You're not compensating. You can really feel the pump. But anyways, so back to the thing we are talking about with the tension with the thing. I think it's just delayed, and I think me as making a living off athletes, I have to innovate and do that kind of stuff. So I'm doing that. I'm doing that with nutrition. I'm doing that with strength protocols. I'm doing that with speed protocols. Although with strength and speed, it does not need to be fixed. The old school guys, they got it down. Just do what they did, get strong. You don't need to combine 17
There's
different.
nothing broken in that, you're
There's
saying.
nothing broken in
Yeah.
that. Well, you guys are breaking it because you want to be creative on Instagram and you have them balance on a ball while juggling, and all of a sudden they're getting hurt and all this kind of stuff. And where is the max strength? Where is the tissue? Where is the plyometrics? Where is the adaptation of tissue over time? How could you adapt? You change the exercise every freaking day. So if if this is how we make money, we're going to put a lot of attention into it. But if this is just something that you guys are doing on the side, you make money doing physical therapy, you make money doing heart surgeon or whatever it is, make your money that way and stay there. But don't try to blend in uh, other techniques that have been proven just because you don't understand them and it's just for clicks or whatever it is, because that's how you're trying to differentiate yourself, is just through clicks and followers. Just stay in your, almost like stay in your lane and just do that. And at the end of the day, we should be working together. So if
Absolutely.
it's like you're trying to do too
Sharing
much.
data.
Yeah,
Yep.
you're trying to do too much. So I feel like with stem cells and ice bath and Pilates and all this kind of stuff, in my experience, we've always been in the private sector. We'd have that in our facilities and stuff to make money and just bring more value to the customer, because at the end of the day, we're all competing for the same pros and we're all competing for the same kids. So how can you be the best? So I feel like that's why we would have an ice bath and stuff like that. But now it's the teams, the colleges, the pros who are seeing the results of what these athletes are getting in the off season, meaning they're not with their teams, they're with private trainers, and they're coming in stronger, faster, with more knowledge. Some of our athletes can have full on conversations with medical staff and strength coaches as if he was ready to hop in and start coaching himself. And so I pride myself on that because I'm always speaking that way to my guys. And so when they go away to their teams, it's just a smooth transition. They're loved by their strength coach, they're loved by the medical staff, and I think it goes a long way. So I think it kind of starts with us, like you say. We have to innovate because that's how we have to grow our industry. But then the sports teams are a little bit slower because they there's a lot of politics and higher ups. And if I'm a strength coach or if I'm a physical therapist, or I'm an athletic trainer at a team in the locker room, it's not like I can just listen to Tom Seeger's podcast, look at his research, believe him, go buy the ice bath myself, put it in the weight room, and not mandate, but recommend that Tom Brady and all these high end guys start pre-cooling before they work out without going through a huge thing. And then let's just say I just did it and then something bad happened. He stubbed his toe while getting in or whatever it is. He's a star player. They're
Now
going
all
to
of a
look
sudden it's my fault.
they're going to look at me and I'm fucking out the door. And I worked 10 years to get here. I had to go through high school, college, another college, a semi-pro team, a different team, and eventually I got to be the head trainer at the Red Sox or the Dolphins or whatever it is. They work a long time, so it's like it's a little bit harder to make the changes. But in my experience, I know a lot of strength coaches in the MLB and the MLB and the NFL, even the NBA. And when I talk to them, because after all, I'm training your star player, I have your athletes for sometimes really more time for the training period than you do. So for us to work together is phenomenal for them and for me. So we're always talking and they're always asking what they're doing. They come and visit, they see what they're doing, and they'll slowly start integrating back into that. So for example, I've trained a lot of Dolphins players over the years, and we would do Pilates. And then all of a sudden, the guys would go back and tell the team, and now there's Pilates there. And then they would come and say, oh, we're doing this kind of speed work. And then all of a sudden, now that the strength coach would ask me questions or whatever, okay, maybe I'll implement some of this speed work as part of my preparation or even some of my workouts, and vice versa. They have things that they send me that I incorporate into my training because they know a lot too about the knowledge of sports specificity and training. And then on the ice bath side, and we can see it now, it's the private people I think that started, and now all of a sudden the teams knew about the ice baths and stuff like that, but they didn't know the protocol. So now you got with big time athletes that are doing this pre-cooling protocol and seeing big results, like you talked about, not just performance, but the mental toughness. If I can freeze myself on purpose, which is not fun, and I do that to myself first thing in the morning, what is anybody else going to do to me throughout the day? You can cut me off in traffic. You can throw a pitch inside and up to my head. I'm going to be ready for the next one. You can step on my toe. You can push me out of bounds in football. I'm just gonna, you know what I mean? You can handle your cortisol, you can handle your stress better. So, but now those guys are going back to the teams, and now you're going and they need a Morozko in their team because even those silver tubs aren't the same as yours. Yours is the
Correct.
best, and they need the best. And so that's what's happening. You're seeing them go into it. You're seeing that yourself go into these big weight rooms. And
Fred
so
Warner of the 49ers made a really good point. He said, at this point in my career, I'm as fast as I'm going to be. I'm as strong as I'm going to be. Physically, he's as capable as he's ever going to be. The room for improvement, he says, is in the mental game. And that's why he goes into the freezing cold water, to keep himself mentally and psychologically sharp. I thought that was such an insight for a guy who is at the top of his game and thinking, where do I get a little more edge? Where do I get a little more edge?
correct. And at that level, I mean, you've been around the pinnacle of the athletes. I've been around pinnacle athletes, the top of their position at the highest level of sport. The margin the margin from good to great or from great to greater or from greater to greatest, like Hall of Fame, is not a lot. A lot of times it's opportunity, but to be lucky and say you got lucky with opportunity means you had to put the preparation. That's what luck is defined. It's when preparation meets opportunity. That's lucky. So this is the kind of stuff where you're preparing and you're just pushing the needle. You're already phenomenal. You're already the fastest, the strongest. Your body composition, you have all the type 2 fibers. You're an insane athlete. Your feet, your ankles, everything is designed for performance. And now, how do you get to be a little bit better? It's all of it combined. It is the ice bath protocols. It is the sauna. It is the massage. It is the training. It is the red lights. It is the ozone. It is everything together. Is how you move that needle a little bit. And I know, and this is not my opinion. I don't like to operate in opinions. This is Hall of Fame athletes that tell me this. What I just told you is from a Hall of Fame athlete, one of the best to ever touch a football. So, that's what we're seeing is if you want to move that needle, it's all of this stuff combined to get to the best.
Is there anybody in your experience who has really embraced what you're trying to do and seen it make a big difference in their game?
Yeah, and I know he wouldn't carry me sharing his name, but Tristan Casas loves the ice bath. Um, um,
I got
and
a chance to talk to Tristan. We had a great conversation about it. And one of the things I got the impression that Tristan's going to do his own thing. He's found a regimen that works for him. He's not going to depart from that because, somebody on the Red Sox has an idea about how to do it different because what's been proven to work for him, he's going to keep doing. That was the way it sounded to me when we were talking. And you can't blame a guy for saying, I'm going to stick with what got me here.
yeah, and and that's one of the guys kind of what I would think in my mind when I was talking about knowing a lot about everything and with performance is, I've trained Tristan since he was 13 years old. And so I've been speaking to him like this since he was 13. I'm like his family and my family are very close. So he always has people at the highest level speaking to him just how they would appear, and he understands it and he applies it. You
Now,
know,
Tristan also has a brother whom I've never met, but I think his brother's trained with you too.
yeah, his brother, yep, had a successful career, made it to college ball at a high level, and now he's at school at U.
Do you notice differences between athletes, even if they're from the same family?
Yeah, of course, of course.
And how do you make adjustments for that?
So physiologically, it's just a process of biomechanics in my mind. With my background of biomechanics, is form or proper biomechanics. So if I see biomechanics that are off or not favorable, I work to correct them. And some athletes have a easier time, kind of fixing it, and others takes a longer to fix it. But the earlier you get an athlete, the easier it is to teach them the right way and they never lose it. For example, Tristan's 6'5", he can squat ass to grass any day of the week. There's not a lot of 6'5" people who can do that. So he's been doing that for a long time. But then it also comes into like the medical team, working with your team because I don't know everything about the body. And so I try to get people around me that know more than me for certain things. And that's what a team comes in, especially with a high level guy like that. You have to have a team. It can't be me doing physical therapy, relying on me studying all the science about everything to do with the ice bath, where I could just go to my source and understand it. Or I don't need to know everything about how a stem cell works, but I know I have the best stem cell doctor to help with that piece of it. I know how strength works, and I know how muscles contract and relax, and that whole kind of piece, and speed and angles and things. But it takes a team. So at that level, you need to have a team help develop those athletes. And then I think the other piece of it is at people in general and athletes in general, they're going to go through different hardships. And I think that's a big piece of it, especially success, is yes, physiologically, your muscle fibers and your different genetic things you're gifted with. But at the end of the day, the people who are just as gifted as you, why are they not in the same position as you? I think it's because you went through something traumatic or hard. Whether you, whether it was a parent, whether it was an environmental thing, growing up in a certain area, growing up without certain luxuries, or learning from, which is this is like a next level, like learning from people who went through it and learning from their mistakes. Not necessarily do you have to have grow up in a hard life to have to have hardship experience. And so I think going through something strong or that hard and really tested you and really tried you and overcoming is what keeps these guys going to the next level.
You make a great point. A life without stress. It sounds ideal. Every parent wants their children, to have a happy childhood without any stress. But it's also absence of the opportunity for growth. Too much stress, I get it, damaging. It becomes trauma. But zero stress is not good for a child either, just like it's not good for the body. There's an optimal amount of adversity that when you face it and you get through it, makes you more adaptive, makes you more resilient, makes you more capable and stronger. In the time we have left, will you tell me a little bit about your new venture? You have a new bar out. I've tried it. I just ordered another box of them. I'm hungry for them now. But tell me of all the things you could have been doing, what motivated you to put this new nutrition bar together?
The complete athlete is at the end of the day is if we're going to have the best strength work, the best speed work, the best recovery tools, the best docs for regenerative medicine, and even the best chefs and kind of meal preparers and things, there's still that piece missing, especially for athletes and me, like people like me and you, always on the go. Is your nutrition's going to fall off because you're going to be as faithful as your options, and if you're hungry and there's whatever's there, you're gonna eat it. And so that's when we said, oh, we need to have something that's easy to consume, packaged and easy to consume, but loaded with lots of intention. The number, and we feel like we that should be in a form of a nutrition bar. So we've always done the shakes. Everyone knows the shakes with the blenders and the shakers and the powders. Everyone knows about that. But the thing is, you need a shaker, you need a blender, you need a liquid, you need a
You don't have those in the dugout, but in between your doubleheader games, you're on the road, you're out of town with your kid, you got 13 hungry kids, they're all going to get the nachos with the ersatz glutinous cheese or whatever the refreshment stand had. And next thing, you got a whole bunch of stomach aches before game number 2. So I can see what you're saying. You're only as faithful as your options. If the option isn't available, especially for some of these young kids, they're just going to go for what is. So maybe the niche here is something healthy that those kids can get into their tummies before they got to get back out there and do the next round.
correct. So here it is. Of course, I have it next to me. Oh,
The R bar,
yeah,
our bar.
our
Yep.
bar. So our bar, certified organic protein. This flavor just happens to be the blueberry acai flavor, which is, if you know anything about these ingredients, it is loaded and really designed to be an antioxidant bar. And if your body is not having to fight oxidation, it's going to decrease inflammation. So this bar will help reduce inflammation. And for all diseases, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, the underlying mechanism for what really causes the damage is inflammation. And so that's why the decreasing inflammation is so important because it affects all these things. So the ice bath does it. We're just trying to do our part nutritionally on the go, especially for our athletes. That's our passion. So we talk about getting better at the 1%. This is part of it too. It's everything we talked about, but it's also part of this. So superfood, superfoods intentionally designed in an easy to package, easy to grab, easy to consume packaged food bar that is uncompromised because there's a lot of them that are, you can have the organic stamp, but still have gour gums and soy lectins and things like that. Even though it's organic, still causes inflammation. So having a lot of intention behind it that can be consumed anywhere, everywhere, and forever is the goal. And so the thing
And where can people find it if they want to try it?
orderourbar.com.
Sounds great.
And
That's where I got
yeah,
mine. Yep.
that's where we got yours. Yeah. We have some testimonials up again from athletes that are Hall of Fame, are really up and up, are really into bettering themselves even though they're already great. So
I hear Gronk likes it.
yeah, Gronk loves it. I literally just printed his label. I'm sending him out a bunch of boxes right now. Obviously Tristan, Frank Gore's behind it, Xavier Howard, and all the guys that just have trusted me throughout their careers and are continue to trust me because there's nothing that can really be argued here as far as us saying that this is the most well thought out intentional bar. Because at the end of the day, like we said, we just want the facts and just to put the best out there. So that's our mission.
Adam, thanks for talking to me about it, about what's going around on social media, trying to correct some misconceptions and to bring in your bar to the attention of people who might be interested in it.
Yeah, thank you, man. And like I said, when they started sending me all the memes, I told them I was like, listen, I'm gonna get some information for you from one of the top dogs, and the only thing is you have to share it. So if if I'm gonna help you, then at least help us help other people because, like you told me off call, these guys have a lot of influence, and I talked to them about it last week on Friday. I said, listen, you guys have a lot of influence, and they talked to me about it. They know what influence they have, which is why they try to refer people to us because they can trust us. But you guys have a lot of influence, so whether you put something out that's maybe not fully true, it's be careful with that. But I can promise you that anything that was discussed here, they can feel free to share because I know you put the work behind it. There's nothing to argue with. We just go read the studies together, and it's not a lot of opinions here. And we have nothing to gain, me or you, other than just trying to help people and trying to drown out all the nonsense with facts. So I think they're going to help us do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you, Adam.
You're the man. Thank you, buddy.